Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this very special town hall, which focuses on the security of the Edo governorship election, which is now being slated for the 21st of September 2024. We are live in the city of Abuja, and tonight, IPAC Development Initiative, with support from the UK Development Office, thought it was very important to have a conversation around the security of the exercise on the heels of what has become a very volatile situation in the south state of Edo. Drums of war and ugly messaging and narratives are coming from politicians. In light of recent incidents of violence and escalating security concerns, we understand that the integrity of our electoral process is hanging in the balance. And tonight, we'll bring together key stakeholders and those who are saddled constitutionally with the responsibility of conducting and also providing adequate security for this election. Also, community leaders and representatives from security agencies to address the pressing issues surrounding voter safety and the potential threats that loom over this election, which is less than a week away. So as we gear up for this very crucial moment in Edo State's democratic journey, it's crucial that we hear from you, wherever you may be watching across the globe, that if you are a citizen of Edo, you work in Edo State, or you love Edo State, or you're interested in the democracy of our dear nation, it's important that we know how your mind is working tonight. Your concerns, insights, and your experiences are invaluable in crafting a roadmap toward a peaceful and secure electoral process. And together, we explore the political messaging that has raised alarms. We'll also discuss proactive measures and engage in a candid conversation about what it means to ensure a safe voting environment. So let's get started, everyone, shall we? Let's begin the conversation now. First and foremost, let's listen to our partners as we understand more on how their mind works on this very important conversation. Let me bring on the stage the Executive Director of IPAC Development Initiative, Mr. Bukola Idowu. Bukola, it's good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. Good evening, everyone, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and citizens of Edo State. It is with great honor we welcome you to this town hall on election security. Over the past month, IPAC Development Initiative has been tracking and documenting the issue of electoral violence and issue of violence generally in Edo State. And it is important to know that we have documented a lot of issues that raise concern. And it is on this note that IPAC Development Initiative, with the support of the UK Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, thought it right to have this conversation, bringing stakeholders together and to have conversation. Because the election coming on Saturday is a very crucial one. And it is very crucial because we need to have a peaceful atmosphere in the state. Whether we like it or not, Edo State will remain. Election will come and go. And that is why we need to have conversation. Now, there have been worrying rhetorics, alarms, utterances, as we move towards the election. We need to remind the actors that election is a civic affair, not a war, and we are not preparing for war. As we move closer to this election, and I'm happy with the support of FCDO and also Channels Television to have this conversation. And I want to encourage everyone that come Saturday, let's come out, participate peacefully in the election, and God bless Edo State. And we shall have peaceful election come Saturday. Thank you very much.
You're already emerging as one of the heroes of this election that's yet to happen because of this initiative. Thanks to the FCDO for their support for this very important initiative. And a lot of people might be wondering, why are you guys concerned about security? And we put in that promotional video on Channels Television. Without security, there can never be election. Don't forget that times INEC had warned and threatened that they will not go to any election field if they're not guaranteed of security. So,
absolutely.
Bukola, I know you and your team, you've done a lot of work as to the violence, the security situation. You've tried as much as possible to put some data together. Let's get to it together. And so let's look at what exactly we've seen. In less than 1 year, since January the 1st this year, 95 violence incidents. That's what has been recorded.
Yes, 95 from January 1st to September 14th. And this is the combination of the violence that are happening in Edo State in specific, to be specific. And this is the combination of electoral and non-electoral violence.
All right.
And that is what the figure is saying.
So we get to know, let's disaggregate. Let's look at the ones that are related to the election and the ones that are not related to the election. So let's look at it. So we have 35 electoral violence related to the election, and the ones that are just violence relating to societal issues and all what have you.
Absolutely. So, of course, when you look at the non-electoral violence, you are talking about the normal kidnapping that have nothing to do with elections, that land issues and the rest. But when you look at the electoral violence, and it is worrying, if you have non-electoral violence, 60 in numbers from January 1, you count 1, 2, 3, 60 in numbers. Now, electoral violence within the window of the campaign, and you have more than 50% of these, of the non-electoral violence, and that is worrying. It calls for concern.
Yeah, so let's find out where the tension, where the uprising started from. And it started just around the election, as you mentioned. See, look at how the graph was coming. Up until about June, we saw the rising in the figures of electoral-related violence in Edo State. So it rose and it spiked in August. In August alone, we saw more than 10 electoral violence related to election in Edo State.
And that is very instructive, because it's also letting us know that as we move closer to the election, tension rises and then cases begin to grow. Of course, in July, we had this unfortunate incident where the policeman was killed and then it kept moving. Now, if you look at it in September, just in 14 days, we already have 4. But that does not mean that we should go and rest, because there is a possibility of election day violence and post-election day. And that is why, when you look at it, it's very, very important for us to keep having conversation. And the most important thing is we can do everything possible to leave this number at this point without increasing.
So it's important, and we're seeing some of the most crucial days ahead of us. Some of the political parties held their grand finale yesterday.
Campaigns.
Some held one on Friday. And we are seeing more politically related activities, campaigns that are gradually winding down. You will see preparations from political parties and candidates moving here and there, because this is a very crucial, it's like a student preparing for exams. These are crucial hours for them, and tension are high. And we're seeing a lot of videos flying up and down about do or die, we're going to kill this, we're going to do that, we're going to resist them and all that. Those messaging are really causing tension, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we've seen the spike as we move closer, and one of the things we have also seen is that it looks like politicians just let loose on the campaign ground. You know, it's just like as if they see when they see the crowd, they are able to say anything. But the one thing they fail to recognize is that those rhetorics, those utterances, people that you are speaking to have the capacity to take it beyond what you even mean. So because you don't even have the luxury of time to begin to explain what you mean to people.
Supporters are more emotional.
Than that. So, and that is why.
And there are reasons why, and this is not a ground for it though, the politics side of the election, we're talking about the security side of the election. There are reasons why the Edo election is more crucial, a bit more tensed, and the reasons why people might be emotional. There are so many reasons ever in the history of that state. But
one thing you also need to know is that election, you cannot say that election is not going to be competitive. It's going to be one of the most competitive elections.
Absolutely. And we've seen a lot of heavyweights that have gone head to head. We've seen 2 people raised in Edo State, but this time around, it's gone beyond that. We've seen brothers going against each other. We've seen former political allies, parting ways in this election and causing and raising a lot of tension. So if you look at it, let's break it down. Where are these? What is the nature of these violence that we have seen? So 35 of them.
Yes, when we talk about the 35 cases of violence, this is the disaggregation, property destruction, and also campaign
which include
material,
billboard
destruction, vehicles and everything. Then you have the violent protests that are not peaceful, that turn violent, shooting. Of course, I also mentioned earlier that one of the shooting results into the unfortunate incident that led to the death of a policeman. You have mob violence, you have kidnapping, you have verbal assault, and then you have physical attacks. And then we have seen this. So when you break that 35 down, of course, into those incidents, this is this disaggregation, this is the grouping, of course, and this is what it looked like. But more, you have more cases of property destruction than the rest. However, all of them are equally dangerous.
We're going to be having a very inclusive and a very expanded conversation tonight, and that's why NSCDC comes into play.
Exactly.
What relates to the NSCDC is the most of the type of violence that we have seen. NSCDC, by law, have their premise to look after property and infrastructure of state. Yeah. So we see how their role is crucial also.
In this.
And the other is the premise of the Nigerian Police Force and their other sister agencies. So this is also very crucial. But now let's look at those who are the perpetrators. Who are those ones that we should be having our eyes on in this type of violence that we've seen?
Absolutely. So those 35 cases of electoral violence show. Now, when you look at the perpetrator, because in this violence mapping, you have three major issues. You record the violence, who are the perpetrators, then who are the victims. But when you look at the perpetrators, you see the political talks, which carry the highest, more than 80% of the cases are recorded by the police.
Most of them are being paid.
Most of them paid, of course, and then they were just working for their money. Of course, some are also highly emotional because they also want to protect their interests. Probably they feel if their candidate lose whatever, they just want to protect their interest. Then you have party supporters. These ones are not all, but they are just emotional party supporters who decide.
It's easy for you to turn from a party supporter to a political thug.
Absolutely.
A thug is someone who suddenly becomes violent. No matter how honorable you are a minute ago, you could become a thug in the spirit of a second.
Absolutely. Then you have the government, then you have some trace to the security agents themselves, and then the hoodlums. So, of course, this, let me explain, because somebody will be asking what is the difference between the hoodlums and the political thugs. Because when issues happen, there are some hoodlums who take advantage of the situation and then go further more than what the political thugs
They may not be established, paid, or orchestrated, or planned.
Their alliance were not even to any political
party. So they just
party.
take advantage.
They just take the advantage.
So let's look at what the other, those who are on the receiving end.
Yes, the victims. So, I talked about the incident, the perpetrator, and the victim. So, victims, of course, party members. You have civilians, and then you have INEC officials have also been taught, and then you have security agency has also become a victim in these particular instances. But when you look at it, party members, when most of the issues also happen between in their inter-party, in some instances intra-party. So the party members were also affected, and this is what the disaggregation of the victim is.
It's so sad, and everybody's involved.
Everybody's involved.
And
you find yourself in any of this.
You can be a citizen that is not interested. Yeah. You might be an interested party. The innocent people that are supposed to conduct elections might also be caught in the web, and security personnel
are supposed to protect.
A lot of the times, these guys, we really need to talk about protecting them, because they are protecting others, but how about them? They need protection too, isn't it? And so let's look at the map. So this is disheartening, actually, and concerning. If you look at the mapping and the work that you and your team have done, it shows to me, I was looking for the green, I didn't find the green.
Yes,
the green is supposed to be areas that we'll look at as a safe haven. If there's trouble in any part of the local government, of the 18 local governments in Edo State, where should we run to? But it does look like if there is trouble, there's no safe place in Edo State. You have to run to the neighboring state, isn't it? From the mapping that you have given, very likely of violence are the ones in red.
In red, yeah. So, Chio, I know you are worried. You once asked that, why is it that we don't have green? Unfortunately, we can't, because when you put all the indices together, history of violence, hard-to-reach area, preparation of around the election, this is what the map is saying. And it's also letting us know that, look, all the local government need to be given adequate attention. Of course, the one in red shows that a high likelihood of violence in those particular places. When you look at it, I don't want to be mentioning them one by one, but the one in amber, which is in yellow, talks about, look, it can move either side. It can be
very
here,
likelihood.
Very likelihood.
Sometimes I've seen likely to be the most violent ones.
Absolutely. But with what you are saying, and also with one of the things you also need to look at is that the candidate, strong candidate, around 2 major senatorial districts. All the senatorial districts are also producing candidates and other. A lot of things. This is not the time to begin to talk about the battleground where you see. But with what we are seeing, every local government in Edo State need adequate security attention. And
so this probably where you find the city, the capital, Edo. This is the capital, and it tells us that there's a likelihood you will find the presence of a lot of security agents there. So, the police is saying about 30-something thousand police officers will be deployed. We're seeing thousands of other security agencies. So if you ask yourself, guess what? Edo State have water bodies. Guess what? There are oil-producing areas around this area that are prone to violence. Edo State also borders several other states, which means that the security agencies have their work cut out for them.
Okay. Now, early warning signal. So this is what we have been able to see. Then unchecked political party thought activity is one area we need to look at, and that is why we are here today. I'm happy the political parties are here. We need to find a conversation around the political party talk. Those supporters that are taking issues beyond. Then you have hate and provocative speeches. We've seen that on campaign.
That is becoming more concerning.
The proliferation of small and light arms. This is, so when the policeman was killed, you find shooting here and there, and then you keep asking yourself, where did they get this weapon from? Then dwindling trust in the election management body is also a warning signal. It's also an early warning signal. Then political arrests, we've seen that, and then we've seen news and bias reporting, because this is a ground for misinformation and disinformation. And then activity of the court groups. These are early warning signals, because for instance, the activity of the court groups, if they are not checked, if they are not put, they are just ready
the bed
human resource for this.
Fantastic job that you have done at Impact, giving us this sense of what this is, giving us a good premise for us to start a conversation. And I guess the speakers and the panelists are already getting geared up to have this conversation. Wherever you may be, anywhere in the world, you can be part of the conversation. The hashtag is there, hashtag Edo Election 2024, hashtag Edo Election Security. And this is where the conversation starts. But we will not start until after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. It's the Edo Election Security Town Hall live on China's television. And this is put together by China's television and its partners, Impact Development Initiative, with the support from the UK Development Office. Now, the Nigerian Police Force is the lead agency in election security. And tonight, the Inspector General of Police cannot be here physically, but we are covered. But he has one or two things to say to everyone as we go into this election. He taped a very short message to the whole of the nation and to the people of Edo State. And here is the message of the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kaude Egbetokun.
Good evening, everyone. On Saturday, 21st September 2024, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, will be conducting the governorship election in Edo State. INEC will be supported by the police and other security agencies in the conduct of this election. The roles of the police and other security agencies are clearly defined in the Electoral Act. I want to say that we are aware of the importance of our roles, and we are committed to discharging these roles with excellence. We will be impartial, we will be professional, and we will be vigilant while providing level playing ground for all the political parties and their candidates. Quasi-security organizations will not be allowed to take part in this election. They will not be allowed to intervene in the election security, just as we have done in previous elections. It is only the police and other security agencies that will be lawfully deployed for the security of this election. I want to say that we should also not continue to overemphasize the impact of the police on the outcome of election. INEC has devised innovations, new ways of conducting election in the country. Therefore, the impact of the police is minimal on the outcome of this election. We should not overheat the polity by always calling out the police once the election is drawing near. We have deployed our men. The men we are deploying have been trained, and they will discharge their duties professionally. We are also deploying senior officers to supervise the conduct of the men that we are deploying. We are confident that we are going to have a peaceful outcome in Edo State. For those who may be thinking of using violence to disrupt the election, I have a warning for them. Any person or persons found bearing any type of offensive weapon on the day of election will be treated instantly as an armed criminal. I urge our youth to shun temptations and to refuse to be manipulated by those who may want to cause disruption of the exercise. We are very serious with our warnings, and we are committed to providing adequate security for this election. I thank you.
That is a message from the Inspector General of Police, and it gives us a very good way to start this conversation. But let's also get some keynote conversation from those who have been advocating for peaceful election in this country. They've helped to midwife several elections in this country, and they're eminent citizens. Tonight, we are the convener of the National Peace Committee, the very revered Bishop Matthew Kuka, who is the Bishop of the Catholic Church of the Sokoto Diocese. Bishop Matthew Kuka, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Could you please step forward to give a keynote speech on this very important conversation?
Thank you very much, Sheun. Good evening, Nigeria. Good evening to the good people of Edo. There's a book I read a long time ago. It's a beautiful novel written by a Latin American writer. The title of the novel is Love in a Time of Cholera. Love in a Time of Cholera. Maybe some of you have read it. But anyway, it simply says, elections in a time of hunger is different from election in a time of full stomachs. So the Nigerian situation provides its own dynamic. And we have the members of the Peace Committee, and I speak on behalf of our chairman, General Abdul Salam Abubakar, GCFR. It's important to have an idea about how the Peace Committee came about, because I think many people, I keep hearing people saying that the Peace Committee has been with us and electoral violence has not stopped. And somehow people think that because the Peace Committee exists, there should no longer be any elections that are free and fair and credible and so on. Well, we have objectives, but to go back, some of you may remember the 2014 elections that took place in Kenya and the violence that attended those elections, leading to an unprecedented violence that Kenyan elections had never seen. And one of the key players was the late Kofi Annan of happy memory. And I think they took particular interest in the 2015 elections that were coming up in Nigeria. And of course, as you know, Nigerians like conspiracy theories. And there were conspiracy theories relating to the fact that the Americans had predicted that in 2015, Nigeria was going to break up. Although many Nigerians, 99% of those who commented about that report never really read the report itself. I was lucky to read the report. It made no such claims. But I the former, I think it was under Jonathan, Senator Ben Obi, and Jonathan had the good mind, presence of mind, to set up an office of inter-party affairs. And the whole idea was to create confidence among political parties. And it was during his time that he convened a meeting. I was invited to that conference, and Kofi Annan was around. Unfortunately, I couldn't physically be at the conference. But later that evening, I remember at about 8 p.m., I got a call from Chief Emeka Anyoku, and he had chaired that meeting. And my anxiety when I picked my phone was Chief Anyoku was going to come hard on me because I was expected to speak at that conference. And after the pleasantries, he said to me, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Abuja, sir." And he said, "Well, we didn't see you at the conference." And I said, "I'm really very sorry. I had other engagements and I couldn't make it." But one of the very exciting things that I had seen in the news, which really shook me, was the idea of then Major General Muhammadu Buhari, who was the presidential candidate for the APC, in a very warm embrace with President Goodluck Jonathan. I was really shaken by that photograph. And so when I received this call, Kofi Annan says to me, he said, Chief Emeka Anyoku says to me, "Have you ever met Kofi Annan?" I said, "No." No. He said, "Do you know Kofi Annan?" And I said, "I know of Kofi Annan, but I have not had the pleasure and honor of meeting him." I said, "Well, he would like to meet you." And I was taken aback because, how would Kofi Annan be wanting to see me? But he said, "We're at the Hilton, and if you have a moment, he would like to see you." And I drove over to the Hilton, and I met Kofi Annan for the first time. And he said a few pleasant things. But one of the things he said to me, he said, "Look, we'd like a National Peace Committee to be set up in Nigeria to avert the possible violence that will arise from the Nigerian elections." And I was quite taken aback because I didn't know how Kofi Annan had heard about me. But anyway, story for another day. I was then saddled with the responsibility of convening a cross-section of Nigerians with enough reputation to be able to lend their moral voices to ensuring that the Nigerian elections will be free and fair. And that was how the Peace Committee came about. But when we finished, after the 2015 elections, as you know, all the projections literally came to nothing. Let me put it that way. But then after the elections, we decided as members of the Peace Committee to just shake hands and everybody will go home. But then we thought, well, let's even have an idea of how people felt about the elections. And we had a meeting with the media, different civil society groups. We had a meeting with the members of the council of the senior politicians in the APC and the PDP. We had a meeting with the speaker. We had a meeting with the Senate president. We had a meeting with President Jonathan. We had a meeting with President Buhari, who had just been sworn in then. And to our greatest shock and surprise, everybody enthusiastically from the media right across said, "No, the Peace Committee cannot go home," because we thought everybody will shake hands and then we just go back home. And I thought these people that we had brought together were very, very busy people. You had His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, Cardinal Onaikan, General Abdul Salam, all very respectable Nigerians who were very, very busy. And somehow one thing led to the other. The Peace Committee is still here. I don't want to say much to my disappointment because I had hoped that by now elections would have gained enough traction. You don't give out your daughter in marriage and then every time they are calling you to come and settle quarrel. But that's how I feel with the Peace Committee. So I think that going forward, let me tell you, as far as Edo is concerned, I am very convinced that Edo elections will come, they will pass, they will be peaceful, there may be arguments, and there ought to be arguments. Because the most important thing in political processes is that the more you have these debates, the more people have opportunities to ventilate, the better it is. I was in Rwanda, in Kigali, on the night they were releasing the results for the presidential election. And the taxi driver who took me from the airport, when I asked him, I said, how were the elections? He said, "Oh, the elections went very well. Our president won the elections. He will win again. He will win again. and he will win until he dies." Now, compare that with the Nigerian process. And I like Nigeria. Our elections they seemingly look chaotic, but there's always a method to the madness. This energy helps to improve the quality of governance. So my hope is that ordinary Nigerians will learn that these politicians that you see, don't worry about their quarrels, because somehow they will find a way of settling their problems. The important thing that we say to Nigerians is you vote to stay alive. Our hope is that as more and more confidence is built around the Peace Committee and the little effort that we make, which is purely and simply a moral effort, to compel our people to be of good behavior. And I have the text of the Peace Committee, of what people sign. There's no need, I don't have the time, you don't have the time for me to read it out for you. But people make commitments. The kind of commitments that young men and young women make when they call people to get married. Now, there is no way for me as a priest who officiates at a wedding, there is no way of me knowing that the young man who is standing before me is a criminal. I don't know. So don't hold me responsible if at the end of the promises, your husband tragically turns out to be a violent man, turns out to be a man with a criminal past, turns out to be a drug addict. It's not my responsibility, but I can help. So the point I'm making is finally, is that we must learn, Nigeria, because of our multiplicity of identities and our inability to manage these identities and the structural weaknesses of the Nigerian state, with its inability to compel compliance even to basic laws. All these legitimacy problems means that it is very, very difficult for Nigerians to find the moral basis to comply to rules and regulations. So it is our hope and our prayer that politics in Nigeria will come to a point in which when we say there are going to be elections, we will not be as nervous as we always are. When we say there are going to be elections, we will not have this high-wired tension among ourselves. Because, truth be told, the beautiful thing about Edo is that there is nobody, there will be no Sheun coming from somewhere to want to be a governor. Everybody who wants to be a governor, who wants to be a senator in Edo State, is a son, is a daughter of Edo. So, if you create violence, everybody will go home and leave you with your violence. And please, I want to call on Nigerians. There was a lot of noise until a month ago about Kenya and the young people in Kenya. I've been asking my friends in Kenya, how come the house has gone quiet? I'm thankful to God that people have woken up to the fact that now Africa, the world is no longer a bipolar world. It is a multipolar world. You start a problem in your country, you have no idea how it's going to end. So my hope and my prayer is that those who are going out to vote will vote to stay alive, and that those who have put themselves forward to be elected will conduct themselves in a way and manner that we see other sportsmen and women. Look, people lose matches and they feel bad, but they still go to the net if it is lawn tennis, and they shake hands. People lose elections. My friend, Father Barkindo, who is sitting here, is very sad because Liverpool got beaten yesterday. But you still see the Liverpool players, they are still clapping despite the sorrow. It's very terrible. 55 years, they've never lost to a small team like Nottingham Forest of all teams. But they were compelled to clap, even though it was bitter. But if you're a national supporter, you will be clapping and clapping and clapping, and you know the reason why it is so. So please, let's vote to stay alive, and then let's hope and pray that nobody will lose his life. Because look, all this fighting, it happens. The University of Sheffield just released a report showing that barely less than 1 month, between about the middle of June to the 4th of July, you are talking of 60 incidents of violence. Well, in the UK, it was not violence. But they tracked 85,000 in about 3 weeks. Abuses directed at Rishi Sunak, at Kestama, at, what was the name again? Sue Baverman, and Dan Abbott. Just the 5 of them, 85,000 abuses across the internet. So, it's not a reason. We are happy that in their own case, it was not bloodletting. So our hope and our prayer is that democracy will continue to offer us the opportunities that it has promised, and that Nigerians will sign on to a peaceful country and to a peaceful democratic process. And we thank all those who sacrificed their life, whether they are security agents, whether they are policemen, members of INEC. We saw what happened to INEC officials. People give their lives for the good of this country. Let's support them and hope that Nigeria will grow and become a truly democratic country, and that those that we elect, please, we elect you to make us, not for you to enjoy on our behalf. We elect you to make life much better for the rest of us. So our hope and our prayer is that Nigeria will become very enthusiastic about elections, but for that to happen, those we elect must deliver the goods of democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bishop. It's a good place to put our hands together for that opening and keynote speech from Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka. Bishop, it's indeed interesting that Father Bakindo is walking alone in that respect, because Liverpool, that might be the beginning of their beating, and they might be able to follow the path of Chelsea and how they are rebuilding things in the other side of London. Bishop, Father, please, just take heart. Things will be better. And that's, I think, is a good spirit and the way manner things are supposed. You are beaten today, you go back home and re-strategize. That's how sportsmanly people are supposed to behave themselves in politics. So it brings us to the conversation on where to go from here. And indeed, my attention is I'm going to start a conversation with my very good brother and friend, Mr. Frank Kumba, the Deputy Inspector General of Police. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our panel for you tonight. Joining us on this very important conversation, the Deputy National Chairman of Interparty Advisory Council, Mr. Dikbo Olayokun. Thank you so much for coming today. Mr. Frank Mba is the Deputy Inspector General of Police. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been listening, or you've listened to Bishop Matthew Kuka, who is the convener of the National Peace Committee. Dr. Charles Omole is a lawyer and a national security reform expert. I won't be able to list all the things that Dr. Omole is into, but tonight he's talking about how we can reform election security in Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming today. And one of the most experienced election administrators in Nigeria is Professor Sam Egu, who is an INEC resident electoral commissioner. I guess you'll be on the ground for that election, isn't it? Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
No, I won't be there, but...
Oh, sadly. Thank you so much. I said I was going to bring in the conversation with Mr. Frank Kumba. Give us an idea of your deployment strategy. How many police are probably going to be on ground? Because when we hear the numbers, it comforts some. For some, it brings some kind of threat. All right, it's a fire alarm and security in that sense. We go on a break, everyone. It might be a real fire alarm. We need to exit the building, but we'll go on a break, everyone. We come back and everything will be calm after the break, everyone. Thank you so very much. We are doing an election security town hall. We've got to be more security conscious. It was a false alarm. We're about evacuating the building, but we're being told that everything is just fine. I guess that the alarm was a bit trigger happy. But let's continue now. So, Mr. Umba, we're talking about your deployment. And I was saying that for some, the quantum of the deployment gives some people peace of mind when they see physical presence of security agencies. For some, people say, oh, maybe you have over-militarized the process. But give us an understanding of your deployment. There are water bodies in Edo State. How prepared is the Nigerian police force?
Okay, thank you, Sean, for the privilege of being in this very distinguished audience. Let me start by saying that our attacks in this election are well cut out for us. It's very simple. Our task is to ensure that we provide an enabling environment for a peaceful, violence-free election. That's our key responsibility. Of course, within this theme, there will be other broader responsibilities that we're expected to carry out. We're expected to ensure that journalists like Shehu and the rest who are accredited and who will be covering these elections are adequately protected. We are to ensure that INEC officials, whether they are ad hoc or permanent staff of INEC, are adequately protected. We are to ensure that election materials, whether they are sensitive or non-sensitive materials, are adequately protected. We also to ensure that we provide adequate security for election materials, both sensitive and non-sensitive ones, from their takeoff point to the destination where they eventually be used. We also to ensure that we provide adequate security even for the candidates themselves who are participating in this election. Election observers, whether they are local or international, as long as they are accredited, we're also expected to provide adequate security for them. And then, of course, most importantly, are our citizens, the electorates. We are to ensure that we provide a safe, conducive environment for them to be able to exercise their franchise and their civic responsibilities without any fear of intimidation, without any form of violence, without any form of crime. And in doing this, the first thing we usually do in the build-up to every election is to conduct a threat assessment. And in this case, we've done a security threat assessment. We understand the terrain in Edo State. We understand that we know clearly that Edo is bordered by about 4 states, Kogi, Anambra, Delta, and Ondo. We also know clearly that there are water bodies also bordering Edo State, River Niger, for instance, and other creeks and tributaries and rivers, from the Bini River to the Ethiop River to other water bodies within the state. We know how difficult some of these terrains can be in assessing them, and we know the peculiar security challenges that can arise from those situations. And so we understand that these borders, they are not just mere geographical locations, because this is an off-cycle election, and politicians have friends and supporters both within and outside the state, and we know clearly that violence can be imported and exported. Those border points will be receiving very special attention from us. We know the effect and the influence uncontrolled flow of weapons can have on violence during the elections. We know what drugs, both synthetic and the organic drugs like India hemp, can do during these elections. And we know that some of the states bordering Edo are also homes to the production of marijuana, for example. So we are paying attention to all this. We also know clearly that cultism is a big problem in Edo State. And we know politicians will try to exploit this. And so in our deployment, we put this whole thing into a cocktail, and we begin to profess solutions to actually deal with each and every one of them. And so in this election, you will see that we're doing both covert and overt deployment. And as I speak to you, undercover operatives are already in Edo. We'll be carrying special operations in Edo. We'll be carrying out raids that are not just indiscriminate, raids that are intelligence-driven, raids that are purpose-oriented, raids that are target-oriented. We are not just we won't go out to just pick innocent people. The Marine Police have been the Marine Police Department have been adequately primed and prepared to also take care of the areas that are going to give us challenges because they are bordered by waterways, creeks, and tributaries. We expect that the Nigerian Navy will also be providing support in those operations. The police air wing will provide a lot of area covers for us. And you will see intensive area patrols. And we also expect that the Nigerian Air Force will also be providing us with support there.
Mr. Emba, just apologies. We're giving the police because you are central in providing security for this election. And so that's why we've allowed a lot of education and information coming from you. But let me ask some quick questions, because the panel also, we have to weigh in on what you have done well and what you have not done at all. These quick questions will also require very quick answers. Why did the police ban Edo Security Network, which we know the nature of security in the country? And as such, state governments and state governors are taking individual measures in their own territories to provide security, local security. But that has been banned for the period of election. What necessitated that?
By law, by convention, and by practice. Vigilantes and non-conventional security outfits are never part of the electoral process. And you can fact check this. Look at all our elections. Our position have never changed. We have never altered. We've not done anything. The Inspector General of Police have not said anything or done anything that is out of the books. And politicians know this. But guess what? Politicians will always be politicians. In the last general election, whether you are looking at the Southeast or whether you are looking at the Southwest, look through the entire length and breadth of the country, we expressly and in very strong terms, and we walked our talk in making sure that non-conventional security outfits did not or are not allowed to participate in the electoral process.
So they are demobilized? If you find anyone, they will be arrested. Is that the case?
Exactly, because they are not part. As a matter of fact, that would be a breach of the Electoral Act. I mean, under the Electoral Act, the law clearly states the agencies that can participate in policing the electoral space.
So let me quickly come, because we need the panelists to weigh in. VIP security. There are those who are worried that a lot of politicians and VIP go around with police. Usually what we hear and see is that VIP security are supposed to be stopped at night before the election, but we still see people carry on like that. We've not heard any mention of whether this is going to be stopped or not.
We will.
So there won't be VIP security.
We will clearly demobilize, deactivate orderlies and VIP protection personnel 48 hours before the elections.
48 hours?
48 hours before the elections.
But this excludes the governor, the deputy governor, the senator, the House of Reps. They're excluded.
Naturally, the governor, the deputy governor will keep their personal security, but look at the catchword here. These personal details are not allowed to accompany these politicians to the electoral pool, to the voting centers. You come, you vote, and you return home. Remember that we will also be enforcing restriction on movement before and during the elections. And we will have roving patrols that will be doing interdictions on the streets, on the highways, and we will also have specialized units that will be policing the policemen themselves. We are not going to leave our policemen unpoliced. And even the other agencies that will be supporting us, we will be policing them. We will be policing the entire spectrum of security agencies that will be deployed for this election.
You have a lot of questions to answer tonight because attention will be on you. Let me bring Mr. Dikpo from IPAC. Are you satisfied with police preparation for this election?
Thank you very much. At least from what we have seen and what EIG has told us today, we just have to take them by their words. Yes, they seem to be fully prepared. But like you have said, I speak for the IPAC, which is the umbrella body of all the registered political parties in Nigeria. And I am standing in for our national chairman, Alhaji Y.M. Dantale, who is also on another assignment that has to do with elections in Edo. We thank channels, we thank KDI and the UKID for this conversation. Because as a political party, the process that is going to climax on the 21st of September started about a year ago when INEC issued the notice for election. Immediately after that, political parties went into action to select your candidates out of the aspirants you have. After that, you get your candidate uploaded to INEC. Within this period, you could have some litigations in court until you arrive at today. And after all said and done, you now have a worry as a leader of a political party. Are the voters going to come out on the day of election? That is why whatever misgivings you have about the police, the mere presence of police at polling booths or polling areas gives people that confidence. But unfortunately, because of the rhetorics, because of the threats by some politicians, which has an objective. The objective is to make sure many voters don't come out to vote.
But why are the politicians, your friends, so desperate? Elections are now become a do-or-die affair. Do you people talk to yourselves within the Interparty Advisory Council? Because those rhetorics are really very terrible for our elections and our politics.
Like the Bible says, that the mind of a human being is definitely wicked. But when there are no repercussions for certain things, that is what you get. We do discuss at meetings. Because some politicians do this thing to scare away voters. Because if 500 people are registered in the polling unit, 200 people go there to vote. At the end of the day, they get a result for 500. In some cases, even before polls closed, results will have been flying around. This is because there's no consequences for wrongdoing. And even before we get there, the police, which is the lead agency in terms of security, needs to be independently independent and unbiased. Because
what do you mean by that?
Yes.
Is the police biased from what you say?
No, I'm not saying they are biased, because by virtue of whatever happens, okay, let me give you an instance. We were in a meeting of the political party leaders, and the political leader chairman in one of the runoff elections, off-circuit elections, he got to a polling booth. We were discussing at a meeting of political party leaders. I said he got there. He saw some people openly buying votes. That's why I'm very happy when our DIG said they're going to have monitors that will be going around to monitor the activities of the policemen. He said he pointed the attention of the policemen that look at these people. Right under your nose, they are buying people and vote. You know, he said what the man said? He said, but they are doing their own here. Why don't you take your deputies inside? It happened live. But like the DIG said, if we have people that will be monitoring the police, they will be able to say, oh, this thing is not proper. So what we are seeing in essence is we love what the police is doing. We love what is happening. We love this. We like what is happening with this conversation. But beyond that, to answer your question directly, maybe there's a need for us to look at the, and let me use the word, enjoyment that has to do with office.
So the offices are too juicy.
You said?
The offices are too juicy. That's why you politicians are
That is why some people are so desperate. That is why some people call it do or die. You listen to radio, you watch television, you hear utterances from politicians, and you wonder 24 hours, 48 hours are like that, nothing has happened to the person.
So police should go after, and is it some kind of suggestion you're making? Anyone who makes those kind of utterances, they should be arrested?
It is very clear on these things. We don't need to invent any new law. The laws are there. Like the DIG said, the laws are there to cover all malfeasance. But unfortunately, some people seem to be above the law. You hear utterances. Somebody was on television yesterday saying, I know, they sent it to me. Somebody was saying they were going to deal with somebody in Edo. If he comes with trouble, they will give it to him load or loaded. And if you check on the day of election, the guy will be there voting. So that's why I said the police need to be independently independent.
All right. Because let me pause you for a moment, Dr. Dipo. Let me come to Dr. Omole. Give us an understanding. You are an independent security expert. What is your biggest fear? What do you see? Is the police ready? Are the security agencies really geared up for this election?
Thank you, Sheon. Thanks for having me. I think when it comes to election security, there are two concepts that I think we need to distinguish. There is what I call the election security management, then there is election day security management. They are two separate things. And I think, in terms of election security management, that starts with internal party activities that can generate insecurity, talking about the, INEC activities, talking about voter sensitization. All those have security implications. The problem we have in Nigeria generally is when we talk about security, we think of kinetics straight away. So when we talk about security, we think about the police. But the police actually are the last layer of security. If every other player in the security estate or in the electoral estate misbehave, you can't suddenly now say the police should perform magic. So what I think needs to happen is, for the insecurity that takes place during the what I call election security, which is weeks or possibly months before the election, that is a difficult one because that insecurity related to election can happen anywhere in the state. It could be a village hall, it could be anywhere. But on the election day security is a bit specific in terms of its operations because there are specific places where insecurity can occur. Looking at what's happening in Nigeria, what I would suggest is that a year before every election in any state, they should set up what I call election security committees in every state. That should include every stakeholder within the electoral estate, political parties, everybody. And their job is to have weekly meetings to assess activities within the election cycle. So you can now tell a politician that at your campaign 2 days ago, you said this. These are the security implications of those words. So you need to go and fix it. So security is not seen purely as guns. Security is...
But within that election security,
yes.
What do you see as the most dangerous? Is it this narrative and the rhetorics or what?
Well, in terms of most dangerous, it's the do or die affair, the way politicians, see politics. And I think it's convenient for them to blame the police or any of the security forces for the misbehavior. Talking about the Edo specifically, the reports I independently heard were of the members of these Edo vigilante groups wearing black on black, so from a distance they look like policemen, walking down the street with pump action guns, and they are not police. So clearly they were there to intimidate. They are fully under the control, of course, of the state. So, there clearly needed to be some steps taken by the police in that regard to make sure those people, in fact, what would happen is if those people had done some whatever, ask an average people there, they would tell you it's the police that did it. Because from the optics and what they were wearing, they look like police officers.
Well, in an atmosphere where some members of the political class have a feeling that the police is biased, how do you go into that election having police to superintend such an election? How do they deal with it?
What's the alternative? Do we call Boko Haram to come and superintend the election? The police are there. Because politicians say police is biased, doesn't mean police is biased. Okay, look at, again, the specifics for Edo. You have a police orderly, from my information attached to an APC politician, killed. Is it beyond the realm of looking at the pathology of crime generally? That is a politically motivated crime. Is it beyond the realm of possibility to assume that those who instigated that crime are from the opposite political party. It's not beyond the realm of possibility, because you will assume
it could be internal. It could be an internal party.
That is true. It could be. But the point I'm making is, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. So you can't therefore say anybody that's a member of the opposition party, don't arrest them, even if they are clear suspects.
No, I'm just wondering, you are an expert in security, and not only that you have knowledge about Nigerian security, you are equally a lawyer and you've practiced in the UK. I'm saying it's going to be a difficult terrain for the police when there is a narrative on the ground, whether true or false, that the police is biased. How do they handle it? That's the question here.
Well, I think they just have to bend over backwards to make sure because challenge generally we have with police in Nigeria generally, it's been historical, is there is instruction up here, but down here, they don't necessarily carry it out. Either the instruction has not percolated down enough, or people don't have enough training to carry out the instruction. So the problem here is not with the leadership of the police. The right instructions have been given. The issue here is the individual police officers. That's why in the world of policing, we say there's a difference between policing, which is the institution, and police, which is individual officers. If you have policing, which is the institution giving instruction, there is ethics that relates to policing, which is the institution as a whole. Then there is ethics that relates to individual officers in terms of how they carry out their duties. That, I think, given the monitoring that's going to be done, I think we will have more assurance in that area.
Let me get, Bishop, I'm going to come to you just in a bit, because there are those who worry that if a political party or a major candidate refuses to sign the peace accord, which was coordinated by the National Peace Committee, it sends a bad signal. But I'd like to get where do we need to go from there? But let's bring Professor Sam, because there are those who think this whole conversation is about the election. As much as police is at the center of all of this, if the conduct of the process is also skewed, or there is no trust in the election, there is going to be a problem. Now, coming from the 2023 election, your institution, INEC, was badly battered by the views of some segment of the public who think that you did not do well, either wrong or right. How do you then go from that election and give confidence? What has INEC done to give the people of Edo confidence that this election, there will not be glitches? This election, IRF will work. Because these are some of the issues that cause trouble.
Well, before I answer that, let me start by saying that I'm here because the chairman of INEC wanted to be here, but for reasons that are very, very clear to me, he cannot come. So he said, I represent him.
As a fellow prof.
Well, we work together in the commission,
That was just a light note.
and the point is that going back to the work INEC does with the security agencies, the thing didn't just drop from the sky. This partnership started as far back as 2011 when Jega came, and then formed ICSES, which is the Interagency Committee or Consultative Committee on Election Security. And so it's a partnership that we have also developed training material. What should the police do in the context of election? You have intra-party problem. This is not the kind of things that bother us on 21st of September. It can spill over. But because of the nature of political parties, within parties, they have problems. Also between parties, there are problems. But in terms of what we do with the police, it's basically a partnership that says, look, we require a secure environment for people to vote. And we have a lot of trainings that we have done, including developing training manuals. So it's not only the meeting at the national level. So we do specific training, and we use the operational guideline of the police, which is the lead agency. And the training is very rigorous, and it tells you about what are those things that you look out for. pre, during, and after. So it's not just, policing election. There's a specific agenda that the police will have to implement in the context of election. So I don't think there is any doubt about what the police should do.
But from the 2023 election, you've had a very battered image, either rightly or wrongly. And trust in the process is very important for the security of that process. What is INEC doing differently to give the people of Edo State confidence that they are in for a good ride?
INEC knows this very well, that in fact, what makes elections credible or have integrity is not even the type of technology you are deploying. It is first and foremost public trust and confidence. And so that is how INEC's work is informed. Now, going back to the specifics of 2023, I'm so happy that in the last election, there were no reports of beavers failing in terms of accreditation. It's also very clear that on the basis of the 2022 Electoral Act, guidelines were clearly written, and the guidelines derived from the Act. So I think for me, what is important is the oversight of that process, so that people who are in charge of implementing the rules.
Are you assuring Nigerians tonight on this platform that INEC, going from the last election into Edo, there is an improvement? You've worked on your platform, there won't be glitch. IRF will work, because trust in the process is very important. It's a layer of security. There's nothing police or any security agencies can do when people protest or when people revolt against the INEC work. That's what we want to, a guarantee we want to get.
Yeah, I'm a witness to that. In the election that I conducted in Benue, there were polling units that people said, look, we are not going to go away from here unless you transmit the results. If you don't do that, we are not leaving. And it works. So I don't think the question of glitches has occurred, because after the 2023, INEC has held a number of standalone by-elections in which transmission into IRF was perfect, in which there were no records of beavers failing accreditation. So if you take care of the problem at that level, I think it is possible that Edo wouldn't be a repeat of any that you are referring to.
There was an amendment in the electoral law, though, which says that INEC has been empowered, and any official agent of INEC has been empowered to retrace the announcement of a result if found either announced under duress or wrongly announced. But that did not happen in most of the cases we saw. At your national meeting, did you think about this and how you can correct that?
Yeah, sure. I think maybe I would say it's opportunity missed. Yeah, because I've spoken to people who said, well, you can review results within 7 days. That's what the law says. But in terms of how you operationalize that, it's not very clear in the law. But the truth of the matter is that I expected that in many cases, you have that window of 7 days to address. But this is an organization that learns fast. And I know from what I've heard that a lot of lessons have been learned. And that going into Edo, you need to rebuild that confidence that Nigerians have lost. Right? Is
INEC aware that you have a battered image, public image?
Those who run INEC are Nigerians. I read the newspapers. I have conversation with people. I know how people feel, about what they want to see. And INEC has done that even in terms of internal and external review. In fact, what we do after every electoral cycle is to come and sit together to say what worked well, what didn't work well. And some of these things have emerged.
So what can you tell us tonight,
yeah,
the message from Prof, that this election is going to be different? Can we get that guarantee tonight?
Well, I'm not going to be the one to conduct this election, but I can tell you in terms of the processes, in terms of the INEC processes, in terms of our rules, in terms of our procedures, on the basis of the 2022 Electoral Act, everything will be done to give this election the kind of integrity that it deserves. Because without conducting elections that are good, they will have no basis for political accountability in this country. INEC up to the highest level is aware of the organic relationship between development and democracy. And you can't have that by accident. You have to be prepared to conduct elections that is adjudged as approximating the will of the people.
All right.
And I think that's the lesson that we have all learned.
Thanks so much, Prof. We're due for a break, and after we come from the break, of course, we will get people in the room. People are itchy to ask questions, but Bishop will send us to that break by giving us an understanding. Was it a shock for the committee that one of the major candidates, and I'm not sure that's ever happened in a long time, in the conduct of the work of the National Peace Committee, when a candidate says we're not going to sign and they did not sign the peace accord, what implication does it have for the election? Quickly, Bishop.
No, I think it's important to understand, the National Peace Committee, what we do is not in the Electoral Act. It's not law.
It's moral.
It's moral. And, you can't compel people to fall in love or to love their neighbor. You can exhort people to do so. But I think what is most important is, first of all, if you go back to the 2015 elections, Alhaji Atiku, who was the leader who was the presidential candidate for the PDP, was not there to sign the peace accord. And of course, the opposition went to town, which is really what it ought to be. And he turned up the next day at the Kuka Center to sign. What is also very interesting is that the current president, who was presidential candidate, did not sign. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't our fault that the political opposition didn't take advantage of it. But the most important thing is that by not signing, what happened in Edo, we try the best we can, to ensure that if people have any anxieties, if they have issues and they approach the Peace Committee, we'll try to deal with those issues. That's why we are, the IG the IG is present, INEC is present. And as I said, it's a pity, but we're not going to take anybody to court for not signing the peace accord. The only thing it does to you as a candidate is that it sends the wrong signal, which can very easily be exploited by the opposition.
All right, we'll take a break, but when we come back, of course, there are layers to the conduct of the election. Guess what? A lot of people don't know what they do, but this group of people, professionals, when they down tool in an election, the election is in crisis. They are the members of the NURTW. Yes, you heard me right. We have the leaders join us. And of course, NSCDC. You saw that statistics earlier. They are in charge of critical infrastructure as prescribed by the Nigerian Constitution. We'll be joined by them. Dr. Olayokun and Professor Egu will leave the stage and they will come and join us. Don't worry. When we come back, questions that both of them need to answer, they're still with us in the room, and we'll have a more robust conversation after this break, everyone. Join us. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on this very special town hall session on Edo election security. Channel Television and its partners, IPAC Development Initiative. And we thank the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office for their support in all of this. Now, it's time for us to get some feedback. And of course, I'm being joined by two gentlemen on stage. But before I introduce them, let us get some feedback and hear some questions. There are those who are participating within the audience that are standing by to ask some questions. So you can quickly go ahead with your questions. Please introduce yourself briefly and go ahead straight to your question.
Okay, my name is Doris Ogbefon, Executive Director, Society for Empowered Youth Development. I would like to ask you, sir, DIG Frank Mba, you have just highlighted fantastic measures to be deployed in Edo 2024 elections. But given the historical context of political violence in Nigeria, how will these measures that you highlighted be monitored and enforced to prevent political lapses and abuses in the election? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogbefon. The next person, please.
Okay, Peter Oagwebo is my name, the Executive Director of Minds Initiative. My question is directed to INEC. historically, it has been observed that during election, there used to be late arrival of election material, and it is of public opinion that the Edo 2020 governorship election, which was the last election conducted by INEC, has been one of the seamless elections conducted by INEC. However, this election also was not free from delay of arrival of materials, and some of the indicators of violence in election day happens to be when there are tension from voters, and of course, late arrival of voting materials can actually create tension. So what is INEC really doing between because it's obvious that there is a strong marriage arrangement between INEC and National Union of Road Transport Workers. Is INEC making any positive move in either divorcing this marriage arrangement, or they want to employ new means? Because over the years, it has really been tough issues, because the road transport workers that have been employed by INEC do not want to move from the rec center to the polling units where they are supposed to deliver the materials. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next person, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Austin Agbe. I observe elections, and I'm a Benin boy. My question two questions or thereabouts. One will go to the DIG. I liken the Edo election from the data presented by KDI to be like the Anambra scenario, where there was a high-risk scenario in which it was difficult for people to go ahead to vote in that election. And I remember the role the police played to douse the tension, brought some level of sensitivity that enhanced the process. And I'm happy that you are the one representing the IG in this meeting, and you played a very unique role in that election. Would you deploy that kind of strategy? Some that look more like a behind-the-scene engagement that will reinforce the hope of people and build a trust to support the Nigerian police, and of course, the electoral process. My second question will go to my lordship, the bishop. You analyzed the 2015 election, and I recall specifically the conference with Ms. I was there in that conference at that time. After the 2015 election, and the call, particularly in Rivers, that there was need for the peace committee to go to Rivers because of the emerging threat that was made from that election. I cannot remember, and I think I may be very correct, the peace committee used the phone to bring about peace in that election. Now that we know that a major political party is not participating did not participate in the peace accord, would you want to deploy the kind of strategy you used between then President Goodluck Jonathan and incoming, as at that time, Muhammad Buhari, the Thursday meeting? And because that Thursday meeting was behind the scene, and that history has taught us that was the main peace accord that brought that peace that we now saw, that phone call that led to the peace that we enjoy today. Because there's historical context to all of this, and it's important to bring that to fore. Are you planning? Does the MPC have the MPC has a plan to deploy that behind the scene to bring back this individual, like you said, Atiku Abubakar ended up coming to the Peace Committee's office to send a call? Can you do that so that it sent a strong message to the political environment and reinforces hope in the election? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Do we have a last person?
Yeah, Solomon Diogba is my name, Executive Director, Youth Empowerment Advocacy, and the focal person for the Coalition of Societies in Edo State. The DIG, thank you for the elaborate explanations as it concerns the riverine area. Today in Edo, there is this probable fear of violence during the elections. And most areas you've mentioned about the riverine areas and the border towns, it's a major thing. I do not know, you didn't mention the issue of vote buying, how you intend to curb vote buying. Because I read through the papers a few days ago that major political parties have mopped up funds to buy votes during the elections. And we know that that is another way of sparking violence. Yeah, and for the INEC, I'm not too comfortable that the man who represented the chairman did not answer the questions asked by Sheung. He dodged it. If you stand in the capacity of the chairman and you said you were standing in for the chairman, one would have expected you to answer the questions very straight. But having said that, I think INEC is a major issue in an election. And the voters' apathy being anticipated or feared is basically surrounding the INEC. How can they assure the Edo electorate of a free, fair, and credible election? Can they assure Edo electorate that there will be a transmission of results, there won't be hiccups in transmission, there are not going to be any foul play? And I think that one major thing that the INEC must do, and as well as the police, they must look for a way to reach out to the Edo populace to reassure them of a free, fair, credible elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got some 4 questions there. And well, there are more than 4 questions. There are questions for about 4 people, and we have some other questions on the social media. But I would like, if we can spend the next 1 minute each to quickly respond to some of these. The most loaded ones are to the DIG Frank Mba. Could you please quickly tackle some of these questions?
Son, or a minute for all the questions?
A minute and a half for you, because you have more of the questions.
Okay, so I will try to go through these questions very quickly. The question asked by Doris and the one asked by Austin are almost similar, because they are all raising concerns about the threat of violence in Edo. Doris is asking, what measures can we put in place to ensure that we match our promises with action, while Austin is almost recommending or asking if we can actually replicate what we did in Anambra in Edo. Now, my answers, I'll be answering the 2 questions together. The Edo political landscape is not totally different from the political ecosystem in Nigeria. And it's the same NPF that have been policing the electoral and the electioneering system from 1999 till date that will be coming to police the elections in Edo State. And I can tell you, and I will tell Edo people, and I will tell Nigerians, that we have the capacity to do the job. I mean, we've done it before, we've come into Edo to do it again. We understand the dynamics of the Nigerian political system. And we have policed elections in states like Anambra, where there were threats from non-state actors that the elections won't even take place. We police elections in Borno, we police elections in Yobe, we police elections in Katsina and Zamfara. Why won't we be able to deliver in Edo? We'll surely deliver. And so that's our words. We understand that politicians are actually sometimes the greatest threat to peaceful elections. But we will do whatever is humanly, operationally, and administratively possible to ensure that we provide a safe and conducive environment for the elections in Edo to take place. The IGP has done a massive and comprehensive deployment. He has promised us everything we need.
What are the numbers? How many police?
We have 35,000 police officers, and we're expecting about 8,000 from other security agencies. So you can do the mathematics. I know journalists, you like figures. But the most important thing for me as a cop is to come in there with sufficient and adequate manpower and operational access to deliver on my mandate. And that's exactly what we'll be doing in Edo. And I tell you, we've done this not just only in Nigeria. We policed the elections in East Timor when they were just coming out of the war. We policed the election in Liberia. We policed the election in Sierra Leone. We policed the election in Namibia. We policed the election in Cambodia. We've policed elections in countries where there were landmines everywhere. And we came out top. We will do this in our fatherland. And we'll do this with all the passion and all the strength we've got. That's our assurances. And for Solomon, Solomon is concerned about the challenges of vote buying. Look, the truth here is, in an economy where you have illiteracy, where you have poverty, where you have hunger, politicians will naturally weaponize these deficiencies. They will weaponize these factors and try to take advantage of them. So we will do what we can do as law enforcement agents, but you know what? We must tackle these factors from their roots. We must continue to engage in political education. We must tackle illiteracy. We must tackle unemployment. We must tackle poverty. It will make our job much easier. But Solomon, we won't just be looking out for vote buyers alone. We'll be looking out for people who will be coming that day to canvass for elections, who will be trying to persuade people either to vote or not to vote on an election day. We'll be looking out for people who will be coming to polling stations with branded apparels or branded vehicles. We'll be looking out for people with arms. We'll be looking out for people who will be conducting themselves in disorderly manners. We'll be looking out for ballot snatchers. We'll be looking out for people who will engage in malicious damage to election materials. We'll be looking out for people who will be attacking voters or attacking INEC officials, observers, or journalists. We'll be looking out for a whole lot more of people who may want to disrupt our electoral system.
Bishop, there was a question for you.
Yeah, well, I actually did speak to Governor Obaseki on this matter, and Aswe Godalo, who is the candidate. And look, you can take this to the bank. If they want to come and sign, and they actually did say so, our office is open. And if due to the exigencies of the election, they are unable to come to Abuja, if they call me or they call Father Barkindo tomorrow, we'll take the form for them to sign. So it's not a problem at all. They did make that point themselves. So it's really not an issue.
Thank you so much, Bishop. There was a question for INEC. Professor Samegu is still with us. He has a microphone. Prof, if you quickly can respond to the question thrown at INEC earlier. Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
You know, the specific question, I'm sure if God were to answer that question, he would tarry a little. Given the type of political economy, the behavior of the actors, the do or die mentality to politics, I mean, so if you wanted me to answer that question, I would not, because I know I cannot guarantee that. But the point I'm making, and people should be very clear about it, the chairman of INEC just returned from Edo yesterday, and they were there for a week for stakeholders meeting and for quality assurance, and to also be very sure about arrangement for transportation, about the level of, movement of non-sensitive materials, and so on. And all the trainings that have been done are meant to guarantee that we are going to deploy people who understand clearly the INEC processes. I think one of the main things that INEC has done for me to understand that we have learned so much, the last election we conducted on the 4th of February, there was a directive from INEC that don't collate any results unless you query the beavers. And for me, this is the most critical point, because the beavers will tell you 150 people were accredited. And if you are querying before you collate, you are likely going to harvest the actual vote of the people. If you bypass the process, that is where the problem comes. And my point is that on Saturday, there will be good election in Edo. INEC is going to follow the procedures that it has been able to spell out and clearly train people in those procedures. And if that is done, the possibility of a credible election is very high. And this is also a country where, as citizens too, we should be vigilant and hold our major institutions to account we all have a role to play. But I'm convinced that in terms of what we have learned, there will be a game changer next Saturday.
All right, thank you so much. There are responses from social media. This one is coming from Celestine Ojokwe. It says, thanks for this opportunity. The federal government must not use their power against one party. Police officers must remain apolitical because they are not serving only interests of APC but Nigeria. Celestine from Ubun is writing on social media. Then Momodu Johnson, he wrote and said, the only way to avert violence before, during, and after the election is to advise the security agencies and INEC to remain neutral and abide by the rules of the game. These are some of the comments coming from the social media. But let me bring and introduce some of those panelists who have just joined us on the stage. Mr. Shola Odumosu is the FCT Commandant of the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. And also we have Mr. Suleiman Danzaki, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the NLTW President on Governmental Affairs and International Matters. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today. Let me come to you because you play a major role, you and your colleagues. But usually we have a problem. On the day of the election, some of your colleagues disappear after being paid to carry election materials and help with logistics. What usually happens? Is it the fault of INEC or what?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm so glad today to be here and be interrogated about what is happening.
It's not an interrogation. I've been wanting to ask this question. It has happened severally. Absolutely.
Materials. You know, it's more dangerous than carrying dollars. One, it is the electronics time. Unfortunately, our arrangement with the INEC since the coming of Professor Attairu Jega, we are to arrange for 137,000 vehicles throughout the Federation that will move the material from one place to another. Unfortunately, one of the issues, one of the crises we used to have is about the resident rec.
In the States?
In the States.
And what is this problem?
He directed the money was out. He gave them all the money. He transferred the money to their various accounts to pay instantly. You know, when Attairu Jega came, he wanted to get a very good way of getting the material moved at a time. So the rates, some of the rates, because of the corruption or whatever they feel that they will do, there was a high rate of fare they are charging. They connive with some of the drivers who are either members or non-members. So we reduce it and make it uniform in a very, almost half of what the RECs are charging to INEC. So from there that we have problem, we become enemies to the RECs. At times, they refuse to pay the money. And when you are talking about the security, I think that we are more affected than any other person in terms of the electronic time. An example, at any given time, we have problem of Boko Haram, banditry, and other issues throughout the Federation, including the riverine areas and sub-Saharan area. We cover all that area. Unfortunately, most of the problem we have, our arrangement was that every local government must have to have about 100 vehicles. And 30 reserved in the local government headquarters in case we have a problem. Every driver must have to have a full roadworthy vehicle with also a very good handset covering all the area that he's going. But I'm assuring you, and I'm telling everybody, most of the problem we used to have is from the RECs.
So we should owe the RECs?
The RECs are responsible.
But for Edo?
No, most of in
Edo
Nigeria.
Yes. Just for a moment.
Even in Edo, we have.
Are we ready for Edo?
Yeah, we are ready for Edo.
Your people will not disappear.
No. They are not disappearing.
They often disappear.
No. You can't tell me that there is one place that is late. If it is late, I will tell you that they held the REC responsible. They know what I'm saying.
But have you created a standard of operation in your relationship with INEC? Is there now a standard? Because you've been working since 2011, after 2011 election with Professor Atairu Jega.
It's extremely centralized. We arrange all the SAC members are going out. We went out and we saw what is happening. I myself, I call the Northwest. I know what is happening. There is areas where I have to go in a donkey from Kazina to Dankama area to see what is happening. We monitored everywhere. And in the riverine area, Kalongo was there. He looked at the riverine area. We know what is happening. So like what I'm saying, we have the vehicle. We have over 5,000 branches. In every branch, before you create a branch in any RTW, you must have to have 4 units. So when you multiply, you see the number of people we have.
But because of the fuel situation in the country and the prices, have you settled your issue as regarding Edo? Is there assurance that NURTW will do what is necessary to ensure that logistics in this election is guaranteed?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Just give me a moment. Let me go to Mr. Odumosu. You saw the statistics that have come up from Impact. Critical infrastructure are under threat. And we see that in all of the violent situation, critical infrastructure were being targeted. What is your threat analysis for Edo election?
Well, thank you very much, Sean. For us in NSCDC, protection of critical national assets and infrastructure is our, mandate. But for the Edo election, the Commandant General, Dr. Ahmed Abubakar Haudi, has ordered deployment of adequate number of personnel to man critical national assets in Edo State. And the INEC building and other facilities and infrastructure of government there is very, very germane, and we're going to be there. We have a critical national assets and infrastructure department, as well as the anti-vandalism unit, which are going to be on ground to ensure that all the facilities, all the infrastructure in Edo State are protected. But of course, our mandate is very clear in the election, because we will be working hand in gloves with the police and other security agencies in ensuring a secured environment for the conduct of the election. And that is beside ensuring general security within the state. So, but by and large, we are adequately prepared. We have special units, special forces that are being deployed for the election. And we have the counterterrorism unit and the canal, which is also going to be deployed for different installations within the state.
What is your biggest fear when it comes to critical infrastructure as far as Edo State is concerned? Because if there are targets and you have the highest rate of attacks targeted towards infrastructure of the state, then there's a problem.
Now, don't forget the crucial subject matter is the election itself. So the INEC facility, INEC building is very, very important. The INEC materials, both sensitive and non-sensitive materials, are very, very important. From, just like the DIG said, and I'm going to reiterate, from the points where they're going to be needed to where they're going to be made use of. Because there is that synergy and that collaboration amongst all the security agencies, we are fully on ground to ensure that is secure. But that is also not forgetting other critical infrastructures like the electrical installations, the telecommunication installations, because
the refineries and
the rest of that.
Is the vote, because vote buying, because I want to ask Mr. Frank Kumba, vote buying is a major issue, but I'm not sure the ballots are critical infrastructure, are they?
DIG is here to...
All right, let me come to DIG.
It's
not under your premise. DIG, quickly, because we need to wrap up quickly now. 2 quick questions, and I will take it as your final thought before I go to the other member of the panel. It's on the issue of vote buying and the arrests that are being made. There are lots of complaints about the arrests and why those who are arrested were being taken out of Edo. Why are they not prosecuted where the alleged offense was committed? But you have only 60 seconds, unfortunately. This is the time I will detain you. I will tell you what to do exactly as a police officer. please go ahead. Those 2 questions in 60 seconds.
I understand your question, but I can speak.
The first is vote buying.
Yes.
Is there a strategy to arrest such situation? 1. 2 is the issue of those who are arrested in relation to the killing of one of your colleagues, and why were they taken out of Edo State? Why were they not prosecuted or arraigned in Edo State?
Okay, let me start with the issue of vote buying. I mean, I've spoken while answering the questions asked by Mr. Solomon. Vote buying is a major issue, and we'll be paying a lot of attention to it. And but apart from the factors that I've earlier listed that are driving vote buying, you also need to understand that sometimes vote buying takes place within the confines of people's home. That's the truth. And you can't go policing everybody's home and office. As we're speaking, you'll be shocked that probably vote buying might have even started. But on the election day, and working as much as possible with intelligence at our disposal, we will do as much as possible to identify, isolate, arrest, and deal within the ambit of the law with with vote buyers, vote sellers, and all those who might be infringing.
Your time is up, Mr. Mba. Quickly, why did you take them out of?
For that, you know already that case is in the courts, and of course I know you have a very good grasp of the law, and I will not be discussing something that is already sub judice. And so for me, I want to focus at the task at hand, and the task at hand is delivering a conducive, peaceful atmosphere for the conduct of the elections. And my final words to the Edo people would be, don't be intimidated by the number of police officers and the law enforcement agencies you'll be seeing. We are there to make life more meaningful for you. We are there to make the environment safer for you. Trust us, and we promise to be neutral. We promise to be independent.
All right, Mr. Mba. I'm not the one to give a priest timing about Bishop. This is a day that I would say you have 20 seconds to give your final thought on this election.
I was going to tell you on this vote buying thing. I was to settle a quarrel between two politicians. One said he gave money and didn't see the reward. And when I listened to the story, I asked him, he said he gave this man this amount of money to deliver. The votes didn't quite add up. So I said, okay, you heard what the man said. Did he give you money? He said, he gave me money, Bishop. I said, why didn't you account for the money? He said, oh God, they know they give receipt for politics. So I think it's important to understand that in politics, so whether it's vote buying or whatever, it's important to know. But let me just make one quick point. On this issue, I think you made the point very well on this whole question of the glitch. I think what is important is our vigilance. Yesterday it was glitch. Tomorrow it will be something else. Whatever it is, we don't know. Because we focus on what INEC told us, and we paid attention to where the results are going to come from. Then it came from somewhere different. So this system is going to, corruption will mutate. So it's just a question of us.
All right, Bishop, we're totally out of time. Just a sentence, Dr. Omole, we need to go. I've been told we're totally out of time.
Well, I think the key thing is I think the police should try and make examples of some of these offenders during the elections. We've had off-cycle elections and we've not seen much about prosecution of offenders. So they should do as much arrest as they can do and make examples of people to reassure the public.
It's interesting how 2 hours just blow and flow away. But all thanks to IPAC Development Initiative and our friends at the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Thank you so much for all of you. Go out next week, Saturday. It's going to be an amazing election that's supposed to be the festival of our democracy, isn't it? So go and celebrate our democracy by going out to vote if you are in Edo State. That's how we wrap it up on this special Edo Election Security Town. I'm Sean Okimale on behalf of all my colleagues at Channels Television. Thank you for joining in. Bye-bye, everyone.